the little subheading here under fractions is converting to decimals. Converting to decimals. Some fractions, ladies and gentlemen, we already know the decimal equivalents because we talk about them in terms of dollars. For example, most of you probably know that 1/4 is what as a decimal? You think about 1/4 of a dollar, it is Jaden? Yeah, 25 cents. Or a half is 50 cents or 0.5. Or 3/4 of a dollar is 0.75. However, what about other decimals? What about like 1/5? If you have to change 1/5 to a decimal, what is it and how do you know? That's a two-part question.
Did you get my text?
I did. Did the speakers don't work?
Oh, did you plug them in?
No, I just looked at it. I saw you had speakers there.
Yeah, but
I walked over there.
I can't figure out how to plug it in the right way. Or they not work. Earlier they don't work. Like I plugged in,
The USB.
you'd have to plug it into the laptop, right?
This is the headphones, yeah.
Yeah. It didn't add any more sound. I plugged them into everywhere I could think of. I even plugged them into the projector.
Well, the projector won't get sound unless you send a headphone cord to it.
I plugged them in everywhere.
You could try if you had a headphone cord that plugged into both the computer and the. You
Yeah.
can plug it into the projector, and the projector might be a little bit louder. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, you can not hear anything that comes from it. Like, it's so quiet. It's definitely not going through, because my volume, when I have my, it goes through the projector. Why is this not?
Let me look real quick and see if I have.
We don't have to right now.
Oh, these guys don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. We care.
No, we don't.
What?
Thank you.
You care.
We love math. Cute video speak. Awesome joke. Maybe be careful you don't get punched. Now we're just gonna do CC books because I don't feel like we're well, I thought you left us. Yes. She gave one of these papers. They just called them my friend. She's like young.
If you have a fraction 1/5, what decimal is that and how do you know? By the way, a couple ways to figure it out. Elijah was just going to say, so how do you know and why? Oh, you're changing it to a percent and then changing it to a decimal. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the easiest way. Anybody got another way? You're right. It's 0.2, but anybody know? One way One way, and probably the quickest way, children, is decimals are always in tenths and hundredths, or thousandths, or whatever. Okay, if you can make 1/5 into tenths, 1/5 is how many tenths? We talked about this before? No. How do you make a 10 on the bottom down there? What would be on top? 2. So it is 2/10. Okay. Or if it was, if it was 9/25. Okay. How would you make the bottom 100? What would the top be? If the bottom was 100, what would the top be, Riley?
36.
Right, it would be 36 over 100 because you multiply both by 4 and your decimal is 0.36. Okay, but not all fractions, for example, 7/8, 8 doesn't go into 10, 8 doesn't go into 1,000. There is one surefire way that works every time you want to change a decimal or a fraction into a decimal. Does anybody know what it is? Ask Siri. Yeah, get a calculator. Those are always one. Kate? Nope, not multiply by 2. Children, one thing you'll hear quite often from me and other people is that a fraction is nothing more than a glorified division problem. Okay, for example, you've had this before, 16 over 2. What is that? 16 divided by 2, which is 8. Well, this is the same thing. This is 7 divided by 8. And now that you know how to do decimals, you can actually do that. 7 divided by 8, and you do it out in decimal form and see what you get. Well, 8 goes into 70, what? 8 times, which is 64. You do your subtracting. 8 goes into 67 times, which is 56. And 8 goes into 40 5 times, which works out even. So the decimal equivalent of 7/8 is 0.875. Every fraction can be turned into a decimal by dividing that out. And sometimes they go on forever and ever and ever. For example, hold on a second, I'll get it. Well, I don't know, 6/7. What would 6/7 be as a decimal? I don't know. You have to divide 7 into 6 and see what you get. Who knows how long it will take us to work this out. How many times does 7 go into 60? 8 times, which is 56. How many times does 7 go into 40? 5 times, thank you for those of you who are participating. Subtract. How many times does 7 go into 50? 7 times, which is 49, correct? How many times does 7 go into 10? 1, so you get 7, so we get a 3, so we get a 30. How many times does 7 go into 30? 4 times, which is 28. You get a 2. How many times does 7 go into 20? Twice, which is 14. You get a 6. Boom. 7 goes into 60. 8 times. Now notice, I started with the 60 here. Guess what's going to keep happening? You're just going to get that same pattern over and over again. So what happens is this, and this just keeps repeating. I'm going to get a 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, 2, 4, 8. This happens to be a repeater to this fraction. And when it's repeat, you put a line over all the numbers that repeat. This would actually be your answer. 0.875, 85714, and it just keeps repeating. Every fraction can be turned into a decimal like that. There's going to be times when if it asks you to use a calculator to do it, just skip that problem, because right now you don't have calculators and you don't need to spend the time doing it. But otherwise, your first thought is to, if you're given a fraction like this one, if you're given 7 over 20, your first thought is, can I make that fraction a 10 or 100 on the bottom? Because that's the quickest way to do it. 7 over 20 equals how many hundreds? Keith? 35. Right, so that's right there, your decimal, that's 35 hundredths. If you cannot do that, if it's like 1/8, and you can't think of how to change it into 10 and 100, then you need to go, okay, 8 goes into 1, how many times? And do that until it works out. 8 goes into 10 once, 8 goes into 20 twice, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. Like I said, if it asks you to use a calculator to do it, don't worry about it, we'll figure that out later. Easy ones to do are like this, 3 3/10 is what as a decimal? Grace?
3.3.
Yeah, 3.3. Doesn't get any easier because it's already in tenths. Or 7 19/100ths as a decimal is 7.19 because it's already in hundreds. Voila. Everybody seems to be pretty excited about that, right, Jake? Very much so.